We are recording.
Perfect, thank you. And I guess we can get started. I see that the room is filling up. So welcome everyone to the August 2019 Fresh School Health and Nutrition webinar. My name is Mohini Venkatesh and I'm from Save the Children. We're still my apologies, that's my reminder dinging. Can you hear me okay? If you can, just with a show of hands or...
Very well.
Okay, great. And I'd request those of you who are, for all the listeners, to mute themselves while the presentations are on. So we'll get started. Today's, first of all, the Fresh School Health and Nutrition webinars, a brief introduction for those of you who are joining for the first time. The Fresh Network is an interagency partnership of organizations that work for the health and nutrition of school-age children in low and middle income contexts. As a community of researchers and practitioners and policymakers in education and health, we run monthly webinars on the topic of children's health and well-being. And every month, we speak on a particular topic and commemorate a special day. Today, we're celebrating International Youth Day, which was this past Monday. And the theme for International Youth Day 2019 is transforming education by making it more relevant, inclusive, and equitable for all youth. Can I request those of you who are not to mute yourselves, please? To share how they're transforming education through an approach that promotes learning by doing and puts the environment and health of children front and center, members of the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium will speak with us today about their approach called Blue Schools. A brief introduction about our speakers. Our first speaker is Daya Moser, who is a senior WASH advisor at Helvetas and coordinator of the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium. Daya is an environmental scientist who's been working in the water sector since 2003 with expertise in water resource management and mediation and behavior change. Daya is one of the 4 authors of the Blue Schools Toolkit. Joining her is Lucy Leclerc, who is an independent consultant and regional advisor for the consortium in East Africa, where she is based. Lucy is an experienced facilitator and trainer of trainers on children's hygiene and sanitation, as well as on Blue Schools. She's also an co-author of the Blue Schools Kit, and she's introduced it in Cambodia, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Welcome, Daya and Lucy. Great to have you with us today, and we look forward to your presentation. Daya, over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mohini, for this nice introduction. Welcome, everybody, to this webinar, and we are very happy and pleased to share with you our experiences and what we are doing on Blue Schools, and really happy to be here today. I would like to start very briefly with whom we are as a Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium. There are 8 Swiss NGOs who joined hands in 2011, implementing jointly a WASH program. Since then, we work in 3 regions. It's Francophone Africa in the west, then Eastern and Southern Africa, as well as South Asia. You can see this on the map. And we have a portfolio of WASH projects, initially in 16 countries, then focusing on 10 countries. Since 2014, the reduced number of countries. In those WASH projects, we provide WASH services to communities, as well as to schools and in healthcare facilities. Today we will talk about our school experience that we especially gathered in over 200 schools where we implemented the Blue Schools approach and have been developing and redefining it over the years. What else do we do? Besides really providing WASH services, we work on innovation, we are building evidence as we test approaches and gather data and on how well they work, and also work a lot on advocacy and policy influencing in the different countries we are present. And all these, we work together on knowledge sharing and learning among these 8 Swiss NGOs and also beyond, like for example today in this webinar. Yeah, with this I already hand over to Lucy, who will talk more about the schools.
Okay, I'm trying to pass the slide, but it's not moving. Perfect. Okay, hello everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today to talk about Blue Schools, and also to see that amongst the participants there are some people from the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium. So hello everyone I know, and nice to meet digitally the people we don't know yet. Before we start introducing more in detail Blue Schools and the Blue Schools kit, I would like to ask you through the chat function to think a bit about what is actually a dream school and what should be the component, or what should there be in a dream school. And if you could write your answers on the chat box, that would be very helpful. So what should be in a dream school? We can keep it anonymous. I don't need to say who say what. So please just go ahead, write down. Where all kid learns, I read. Yeah, a place where children enjoy learning. It should be fun. Safe quality learning environment for all children. More answers? What should there be if we just think about the school? What component, what should we find in the school compound of a dream school? Good teachers, yes, fun, good teachers. Resilient to disasters. Prepares for real life. Enough resources, now people are enough resources for everyone, teachers and students, conducive learning environments, enough space to play, environmental and healthy, friendly. Wow, that's a person who has already read our concept brief, I think. So thank you for your input. So basically, we have been asking the same question to some teachers during the training on Blue Schools. This was actually the starting point. This drawing is the example of a drawing that teachers have come up with when we ask them to draw their dream schools. I can admit, next time I do this exercise, I will give some color pens. It will maybe look nice at the end. But I think if people could switch off their microphone, I can hear a lot of background noise. So basically what you can see in this dream school drawing is that there was components, there was some water system, like access to water. They have also been drawing toilets. Here, I mean, I put the drawings on top of it, but this was a hand washing facility. Also separate toilet for female. There was a school garden, and then there was some trees. We've done a similar exercise in Cambodia. And here also they had come up with similar components. So access to water, here there was the water system, the water point, latrines, hand washing, here there was the school garden. In this one there was also a waste pit, and here there is an environment, there was trees. So this was how we introduced the Blue School concept to different teachers in different countries, by starting by the Dream School, and then after by linking those components to the definition of Blue Schools. So indeed, a Blue School is a school that is healthy and environmentally friendly, as some of you have already said. It's a school where there is drinking water, There are sanitation facilities, hand washing facilities, a school garden, good waste management, and a school that is good for the environment. So you are already much ahead, and I have seen in your comments that you've really highlighted the importance of putting the children in the center and the importance to learn by doing and the fun. Indeed, Blue School is not only about those infrastructures. Blue School is about the learning of children, and more particularly, not only the learning, but the fact that they would practice all those good practices. It puts the children at the center. So this is now the children are at the center, and the children are happy to go to school and happy to learn. So in a Blue School, now in the definition, we have children use safe drinking water and well-maintained latrines. They maintain good hygiene practices. They take part in gardening activities. They participate in waste separation and collection activities. And they are exposed to environmentally friendly technologies, and they practice it. And to reach all this, it's very important to acknowledge the key role of teachers. And the idea is not to add on the workload of teachers, but to see how they can complement the theoretical lessons with more practical exercise so that children can learn by doing. So this sounds all very idealistic. Hopefully a bit later with the presentation of the kit, you will get a better idea on how we can reach there. But as a starting point, we have acknowledged that, I mean, it's important to acknowledge that becoming a Blue School or becoming this healthy and environmentally friendly school, it's a pathway. It's not going to happen over time. And what is very important is that WASH needs to be addressed as a starting point. And why? Because if you want to start introducing a garden, but there is not enough water for drinking, or if you talk to children about planting trees, but they actually don't have enough, they don't even practice or use toilets. I mean, it's also a question of priorities, but the question of the water availability, it's really the starting point. And then after, water availability necessary for hygiene practices. And then once we start on hygiene, then you move to the waste, the garden to learn good water and environmental practices, and then after other technology or practices to be more aware of the environment. In the Blue School concept, we also acknowledge that each school is different, and that the different component of Blue School can be implemented differently, and the focus can also be different. So in some contexts, the school garden can be very important. In other, there will be much more focus on the environment, and it's very important to acknowledge that it's a pathway and it takes time. So all this sounds idealistic, and this is that was our starting point when we developed the school kit. It was, okay, how can we now provide adequate material and support as NGOs to basically help those schools to take this pathway and to move towards a healthy and environmentally friendly schools. Through the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium, as you've seen, we worked a lot on WASH in schools, and we've also piloted school gardens and all other good practices, and we've learned a lot of lessons. And this was the basis for the development of the Blue School kit. The first lesson we've learned is that no matter the way you do it, it's very important that we don't come with approaches that add on the existing workload of teachers. So we thought it's very important that whatever we develop, it complements the curriculum and it focuses on learning by doing. So we are not introducing new activities that they have to do. It's supposed to add to the current curriculum. We aim to inspire, not to impose. So this is very important point. It basically means that we don't want to tell them we don't want to tell them what to do. We really want to give them ideas on how they can complement the theoretical lesson or introduce some good practices to children in a fun way. Blue School Kit also it's not meant to be prescriptive. So compared to other approaches where it's a full additional curriculum that tells you what to do in day 1, in day 2, in activity 1, 2, 3, Blue School is really just for inspiration. And we have made the material that we've developed generic enough so that it can easily be used in different contexts. So on this, I will hand over to Daya, who will give you more detail on the Blue School kit.
Now I think you can hear me. Yes, the Blue School Kit, what is it and for whom? Our material is really developed for project teams working for WASH in schools, but also local government, like wanting to add on or improve their schools, and school stakeholders themselves. And depending a bit on which stakeholder, we have different documents or materials. So it contains 4 main elements. And the first one is a concept brief. I'm coming back to all 4 elements independently again. Concept brief is the general concept and how you work with the stakeholders and what you need to consider. And then we have a catalog of technologies, really giving a lot of examples on what you can do in your school. And also a catalog of practical exercises for teachers, what they can do in the classes to really practice this learning by doing, as well as a facilitator's guide also for the teachers for the different topics we address and how to do it in the classes. And as Lucy mentioned before, our aim is really to inspire, and this is why we came to these catalogs. It's like just a kind of a toolbox or box of ideas on what you can do and how teachers can enrich their lessons, or how school responsibilities can improve the environment in the school. The next slide.
Sorry, I'm pressing, but it's not going.
Okay. Yeah, I just start.
I think it's the connection, Lucy, just if you give it a moment.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so within the Blue Schools, we defined 8 main topics that we address and initiate to work on. The first 3 might sound a bit complex, but it's on the environment, the water cycle, the watershed. It's really these environmental topics, which from a kind of starting point can be the environment. Based on our experience, often this first block is not the entry point, but it's rather these topics 4 and 5. Also 6, I mean, there we really have our WASH topics. In 6, in the growth and change, we also have menstrual hygiene management, where we provide different ideas what to do. And then number 7 is from soil to food, is all the gardening. And the topic 8, from waste to resources, is about solid waste management and what you can do at school level. But these are these 8 topics, the first 3 on environment and the rest. What we mentioned before. So with this, I'm coming to this concept brief, the first main products that we have and document. It's really, it provides the general idea on the Blue School, what it's about, what you have to think of, what we recommend to do. You find indicators for these 8 topics that I mentioned. Besides WASH, which is really aligned with the JMP indicators, we talk about gardening, for example, as an indicator. The students are engaged in small-scale gardening activities and cultivating nutritious crops in different seasons. These as an indicator. And also here, again, with the focus on low external input sustainable agriculture that we try to promote. Or on solid waste management, here again, that the students participate in separation and collection of organic and non-organic waste, that they really experience this by practical doing. So also our indicators are really formulated in that way, that students are active and students are doing. And the second very important part of the concept brief, it's like this roadmap for implementation. It shows the different steps to do, also what to think of, with whom to engage, that it is really embedded in the national setting with the local authorities and actors. For us, it's very important not to work in parallel to the local education authorities, but really be aligned. So we have 4 main phases. The preparatory phase is just very basic, understanding the context where you are and assure the alignment with the sector, also alignment with national curricula and all that. And then the second step, this engagement of government institutions is very key, and to agree on how you work together. Also ideally that the local education authorities are in the lead. Here I can give the example of Benin, where we have been implementing nearly 200 blue schools in one country, very directly linked with the local authorities. And they've really been key in selecting the schools, also sending their staff to give trainings in the schools. And we have really rather been in the background to facilitate that process. Then the next step is then really in the school. It can then be led by the local authority or by the project team, depending on the project. But there are different factors to consider and steps to do that you can really sustainably implement the Blue Schools concept in the schools, to get all the stakeholders on board, clarify the roles and responsibilities. Also for O&M, already have clear mechanisms, or also funding mechanisms. How can you assure that the infrastructure or technologies that are there for IDs can be sustained? Also for the gardening, for example, that they are again either they produce seeds themselves, or that they can then purchase seeds again. That it is all clear how it will be kept alive. And of course also, like, not just as a last step, but really start this coaching very early and be clear on how you phase out and what the strategy is. So there you find just ideas on what to do, how to do it in this concept brief. With this, I hand over to Lucy, who will introduce us more to the catalogs that we developed.
Okay, so now I will present you the catalog of technologies with a few examples. So the catalog of technology focuses on low-cost technologies that can be implemented in a school compound. Why low cost? Because again, the idea is to inspire school to do things by themselves as much as possible. What you see now on the screen is basically some example of technologies introduced in the different topics. So you recognize the logos. We are using those logos to differentiate those different topics. And now I will take you through a few practical examples. One under the topic of school garden, so from plant to food, is the keyhole garden. So this is a low-cost technology. It can be done with very little space, because actually I saw one of the questions about the purpose of the gardening activities. Here, what is very important in Blue School is the focus is on the learning, and learning good land and water management practices. The purpose is not a school garden for production. The purpose is really that children can learn good practices on land and water. So keyhole garden is a good example for this, because basically you can plant different crops on a small surface. In the center, what you see is basically a place to put organic waste, and it makes compost, and then it feeds the plant. So it's a good way also to demonstrate the nutrient cycle. The plastic sheet that you see at the bottom, it's basically because this was introduced a lot in Bangladesh by Terre des Hommes, and it was in a flood area, and this helps against the flood. So the farmers would have their land flooded, and with the keyhole gardens, they could still have some crops growing on top. Another example of technologies under the category of watershed management is planting hedgerow. I will not go more in detail. What I just would like to highlight is that all the technologies are presented in the same way, with first a description of the technology. Sorry, I think there is someone is talking at the same time. Can you? Can you please mute your microphone? Thank you. So I should not look the question, sorry. So it's all structured in the same way. A brief description of the technology, where it can work, how does it work, cost consideration, advantage, disadvantage, and also all links. So that when you really want to know in detail how to do it, because this is just a one-pager in the catalog, then you can click on those links and then you have the information. Another example is a reforestation exercise that you can do with children, or building a storage tank using bricks, or it can also be done with plastic bottles or biosand filters. Another example in the from plant to food is like a buried pot for manual irrigation. Yeah, so I go briefly now because the idea is just that you understand how it's structured and what is inside there. If you have detailed questions on some of them, we could come back to it later. The second catalog is the catalog of practical exercise. So this is really basically exercises that aim to complement the theoretical lessons and not of the teachers. So those are all outdoor activities, very participatory activities, game, experiments that try to introduce different concepts that they would normally learn in the classroom, but in a much more practical way. So again, it's structured in the same way, using those logos, using the same topics, and I will take you through a few of those practical exercises. So here's for the other ones. Yes, maybe something to add is, I'm not sure if Daya mentioned, but there is one specific topic in the Blue School kit, which is on growth and change, which is basically gender and menstrual hygiene management. Initially, in the initial concept of Blue School, it was not part of it, but as part of our experience with our partners in the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium, we identified it as an important topic to add to the overall concept. So, sorry, this one we already. So just to give you an example of those practical exercises, so this is in the topic on the water cycle. One easy way to illustrate the components of the water cycle, and especially the evaporation, is by just taking 2 jars of water, covering one and letting the other one open, coming back after some time and noticing that the one that is open has less water than the one that was covered. To demonstrate rain making, you can also just put boiling water in a jar, cover the jar with ice cube on top, and it's the same processes as rain. When the water vapor hits a cold air, then it drops and it makes rain. Now about the transpiration, you just put a plastic bag around one leaf of a plant, and then you will notice that there will be drops on the side of the plastic bag inside. This is another practical exercise on watershed. So just taking a piece of paper, crashing it, and then spraying water on it, and then noticing how the water is flowing, and from there drawing the contour. And then after explaining that this is basically the watershed, that any drops that falls on the side will flow in that direction. So this, I guess some of you are familiar with it. On hygiene also, we have compiled a number of practical exercises, which are in some cases taken from other approaches like CHAST. This is a different one. This is a very simple exercise that you can do with children by putting paint or char on their hands, and then, or you do it yourself, or the teacher does it himself without saying anything at the start of the classroom, put his hand on the paint, and then starting to shake hands or touch things, and then after start a discussion on how germs are spreading, and the same as the paint on your hand. The glass of water exercise from CFTS, you could also do it with children, also as a way to initiate a discussion on it's not because water is clear that it's actually safe to drink. In the topic on growth and change, we put some focus. We have some practical exercise to introduce the notion of the gender differences and similarities. So here you could do a game with the children to let them exchange their usual roles. This is more on menstrual hygiene management, starting by the fact that all children at puberty have body change, and discussing this together with boys and girls. Those posters are also available separately, so you could also use them without the catalog. This is another practical exercise on making pads for menstrual hygiene management. Another one on from soil to food. So it's basically cutting in half 3 different water bottles, one with a cover, like a grass cover, one with just leaves and the other one with nothing, and then putting water on top. And then we will notice that the water with the pot with the grass, the water that will flow from the bottom of the bottle will actually be clear, while actually if you put water on the soil, on the bare soil, then you will have a lot of soil that will come out. And this is to illustrate the process of erosion. Planting a tree, we've already discussed this. This is in terms of waste management. One practical exercise is just to, together with the children, go and visit a dump site and have a discussion on where is the waste coming from, and what happens when we actually drop a waste somewhere. Making eco bricks using plastic bottles and putting plastic bags inside it. So this is just a few examples in the different topics. In addition to those 2 catalogs, we also have a facilitator's guide. At the end, the facilitator's guide is it's a much more visual tool. So it's in A3, it's much bigger. In the front, there is a big photo that you can use to discuss the specific topic. And in the back, you have a question for discussion and the summary of all the practical exercise that you can actually do to illustrate this specific topic. So it's a more visual material that teachers can use also as kind of a summary, because the catalogs can be a bit big and it has a lot of detailed information on how to do the activity and all. So this is more of a summary. Okay, I have now a few photos just to show you what we are talking about. I will not focus on the water and sanitation because I think we have a lot of experience on that, but maybe more on the practical exercise. So on these photos are from Cambodia. These are practical exercises that are carried out with the children. The one at the bottom, it's actually a practical exercise where you take 3 different glasses of water. In one of them, you put salt, a little bit. In the other one, sugar. And in the last one, you put nothing. And then you ask the children to come forward and to tell them, okay, this is clear water, right? Yes. Do you feel comfortable to drink it? They will most likely say yes. Then the 3 of them start drinking the water. And as you can see the face of that boy with the glasses, he probably had the water with the salt. So he will react in a certain way. And then from there, you can also discuss, start a discussion on the fact that clear water is not always safe to drink. On the right side, you see 2 children inspecting the cleanliness of storage facilities. And also they have had an exercise to learn on how to clean the ceramic filters. So this is was also another practical exercise done by teachers in Cambodia. Actually, I'm getting those photos from Cambodia because after the training, the teachers have by themselves set up a Facebook group. And now they are always, every time they do a practical exercise or implement a specific technologies, they post it on Facebook to all the other teachers who were in the training. And it's a very nice way to motivate and to keep each other inspired. Okay, this is more on the hardware facilities, so I will pass this one. For software on hygiene, yes, in the teams where we have implemented Blue School, there has been a lot of focus, particularly on washing hands with routinizing hand washing. You see on the bottom left that children are doing it before entering the classroom, after each break. So they all queue and have to wash their hands. On the right side at the bottom, it's more demonstration. On the top, it's more like messages on the toilet or just in the school compound. Here are some specific photos of the gardening activities. So you can see one real photo of one of our projects from Terre des Hommes in Bangladesh. Caritas Kenya, this is a Mandela garden. You call it like this circular garden. This is a vertical garden. As I said earlier, the purpose of the school garden, what we really highlighted is it's not for the production, it's really for the demonstration of good land and water management practices. So the idea is not in a school garden to plant the same as what the community is already planting. Then there will be no learning, but maybe to look at what would be an interesting, nutritious crop. What we have also observed is that in many cases in our project, we used to put indicators on nutrition improvement based on school garden, but if we are realistic, this is not realizable, because it's not with a school garden that you can feed a whole school. At least in those countries where we work, those are many children in one school. So we have now really put the focus on school garden for learning innovative and good land and water management practices. But this was sometimes challenging, because it's exciting for teachers when they see that they will maybe get support, or when some of them have already actually implemented a school garden, and for them they have all those ideas that they can make money from it, and from that money buy some things. But it has been successful in some places, this more production based, but what we have observed is it's not very sustainable, because children are tired after the day of work. If you want them to work on the school garden and then go home and actually do the same at home, help their parents with their garden, it's all a bit challenging. And what we've observed is in some schools, it just dies off after some time. Other photos of school gardens. Here, those are specific schools. Sorry for the quality of the photo. Those are school gardens where they are piloting specific irrigation techniques. So here, drip irrigation with bottles. Here, this is a drip irrigation kit. And those are photos of good land and water management, good land practices actually piloted by Helvitas in Nepal, with terracing of the land around the schools. And here's some planting trees activities in Kenya and in Madagascar. In Madagascar, actually, Fastenhofer had a very nice, they introduced something very nice in school. It's one child, one tree. So they promoted that in each school, each child will plant its tree and then take care of it until it grows strong. On waste management, there have also been some good practices and good improvement. The one on the top left is another example of Cambodia, where plastic waste was a huge issue. And then teachers, after the training on Blue Schools, they really agreed with themselves that they have to engage those vendors, which you find in schools there. So engage the vendors with the parents in a discussion on how can we reduce our plastic waste? Do we really want our children to eat all those bad sweets, or shall we just have more a program where someone cooks for the children and children can buy, because they would buy those sweet things anyway. So buy the food and then buy using those plates and those cups. So this was implemented. It was a big success. And here's the separation of garbage, and here making compost. In the waste part, we really focus on the reducing waste, reusing waste, and recycling waste. This is an example of one practical exercise, which is about, together with children, analyze the different waste components, and then after discuss how can we reduce them or reuse it or recycle them. Okay. So that was it for the presentation. It's hard for me not to look at all the questions that came on the way. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope it was comprehensive, and we look forward to your question. And I also would like to invite my colleagues from the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium, if they are, I've seen some. If you want to respond to a question or share your experience, please do so. Daya and me, we were just very happy to present to you the kit and the concept, but you are the people in the field, and we would be also happy to hear your views. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you, Daya, for that very visual and visually stimulating presentation. Amazing materials and pictures, and you can see from the chat box, people loved your materials and all of the great ideas that you have you've been implementing as part of Blue Schools. And just to take those questions up, and I'll try to group some of them. So we're giving you the opportunity to address it more fully. There was a question around, all of these activities are very practical, very illustrative. You're covering many topics within the curriculum, and that's great. There was a question by one of the participants about whether you did a mapping of the curriculum before you started out. How do you decide what's relevant for a given context? And if you can speak more to that, and also linked with it, in terms of teachers and how the pedagogical approaches in schools, shifting that from one of rote learning to a more learning by doing approach. What are some of the challenges that you've faced? If we can take that up first.
Maybe Daya, do you want to take up the curriculum question, and then I can take the changing the practice, the way of the teaching style of teachers.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's very usual that we do go through the curriculum, but it would not only be the project teams themselves, but really also in discussion with the local responsibilities for education, and see with them also during the process, like how can we embed the school gardening and link it, for example, to biology or to physics and physical processes. So usually it's what, from our experience, is that it is there in the curriculum that exists, but it might be expressed a bit differently or not so explicitly as a school garden, for example, this, and but usually this is what to find out what is relevant is really done in discussion with the local partners.
Right.
Okay, maybe then to reply on the, maybe I will give a bit more insight on how we do the training of teachers or government staff. I mean, again, Daya mentioned that depending on the project, depending on the area of focus of NGOs, you might target the government staff that train teachers, or you can target directly teachers, but of course the local government will always be involved. If I can give an example of a training of teachers on the Blue School kits that we've done. And it's written in the roadmap, the understanding of the curriculum is very important before that you do the training, because then you can put a bit more or less focus on some topics. But when we do the training, actually, I have so we ask teachers to draw their dream school. And someone has again the microphone on, sorry. Someone is going down and up the stairs, I think. So we ask teachers to draw their dream school, and then we link that after to the definition of Blue School. Then we ask them to assess their current situation. So this is basically a self-assessment done by teachers on how far are they from their dream school. Then after, what we do is topic per topic, we present them the different technologies for one specific topic and the practical exercise for this specific topic. After that we've done that for that specific topic, we let them discuss what is relevant for what do they like, what practical exercise they like, what do they want to do in the future, like what do they think is relevant for their curriculum, or what do they want to pick from this catalog? Because as you might have seen by downloading the material, or maybe from this presentation, there are a lot of technologies, a lot of practical exercise. So we are not expecting them to do all, but also teachers have to feel inspired by one specific practice or two or three. And when we do the training, we do it very participative. So I will not present them those practical exercises like I've done right now, but we would do it with them in practice. And we would even go to a school and pilot them in practice. So they really also get a feel of it in real. So then they decide what they want to implement for each of the topic. And then after, they draw, or this is an example of basically action plan for each of the topic. So on one topic, technologies, practical exercise, then they brainstorm and then they write, okay, for my specific school, I really like this, that could complement that lesson. I really like this because I always struggle to really explain those different components of water cycle, etc., etc. We are not imposing. So yeah, so this are example of different action plan for one specific school that were done for the different topics. So the changing of way of teaching, indeed, this is the biggest challenge. I mean, I've worked mainly in African countries. Teachers are quite top-down. This is the way they've been taught. This is the way students are also used to teach, to be taught. So what I must say is, like, when they practice those practical exercises in a participative way, and when they really see how children really enjoy it and have fun, it really triggers them. But indeed, it's important to also cut from some decide to dedicate specific time for Blue Schools activities, or to really make a difference by going outside and doing some of those activities, because it's also hard for them to teach them frontal and then suddenly to change the mood and then be very participative. But they do there are different strategies that they choose. And like what I said in the case of Cambodia, they so much like those participative way of teaching some of those topics, that they've set up this Facebook page, and they really encourage each other to do it very participative, and they congratulate each other. I think I can stop. I can talk 1 hour about this, so I will stop now. I hope this answered the question. Sorry for making it a bit long.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you to Ma, who asked this question about how you work on integrating into the curriculum. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, but that was a great question, and it's something we struggle with in our work with schools. When one is, how do you make it feasible, manageable for teachers to take on something in addition to what they're used to, even if it is a different style of teaching, and it really has to be a participative approach, something that they are vested in and see value in, to take it to the next level, and also have the incentive to be able to do that. And I think seeing those results as they has made them more interested and excited and to continue it, and that's great. Because that's where we want education to go. There was a question about I think this was from Ron Delnois, if I got your name correctly, about what grades are best to start Blue Schools. Some of the activities may be quite technical for primary school students, but you also had some activities which were quite simple and easy to do, that children in grade even 1, 2, or 3 could take up. How do you decide what's fit for different age groups, and how do you go about doing that?
Okay, I have a quick answer to this. For each of the practical exercise on the technologies, we have indicated on the side in the material the level. So whether it's very simple and you can actually do it with any class group, or whether it's a bit more advanced. But the target group is mainly upper primary school. But there are some activities you could also do with lower primary school. But so the level of complexity is written there, and our target group is mainly upper primary school children.
Plus secondary school, yeah, both.
Exactly, or secondary school, yeah.
Okay, great. So it's both primary and secondary, and really depends on the type of activity, the level at which.
Yeah, and so far we've mainly used it in primary school, in upper primary so far, but we are not limiting it to that. Yeah.
Okay, great. And are you seeing that there is a need for agreements with the Ministry of Education as you work with schools? Are you also seeing any changes in policy at the local government level with wanting to follow this approach for the topics you cover, but more generally also for teaching learning to be more practical? where do you see, you know, the work that you're doing moving from impacting schools to impacting education systems? Is some of that happening already, or is it too early to speak of that? If you could shed some light on that as well.
Daya, you want to reply this one?
Well, one example is in Benin, where it really has been taken up, or a lot of interest at national level from the education ministry. But there has not been yet really a guideline or something passed, which would be now compulsory. But like the whole gardening exercise is really something that is very interesting, or they find it interesting. I think this is probably the one we got the furthest. For the practical teaching, I have the impression it's too early, but maybe Lucy, you have an example.
Also on an example on how to, the microphone, sorry, the microphone. Yeah, mute, yeah, thank you. In Cambodia, during the trainers, sorry, I think someone needs to mute the microphone, it's a lot of noise. Okay, in Cambodia, during the training of trainers, we also invited the different level of government, from local to even provincial. And there has been a lot of interest. And actually at provincial level, they are even initiating competitions between schools on the different topic of Blue School. So it's not yet completely owned, this concept, but at least they found it very interesting, and they want to promote it to different schools in the same province. I know that in some countries we have managed to. I used to work for Caritas Switzerland before in Eastern Africa, so in Kenya and in Ethiopia, and I know that my colleagues did a lot of efforts to promote those more participative approach for different topics. So CHAST, as you know, it's an approach developed by Caritas, and CHAST is now, for example, in Ethiopia, acknowledged as one of the good approaches that can be used in schools. But just to say, the final Blue School kit that you've seen with so much detail has been finalized last year only. Now we are entering in a new phase of the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium, and we will put a lot of focus on advocacy at country level. So we hope that in the coming years, we can, with the different teams that will be engaged in the consortium, do much more advocacy on this topic. And there was one question on the MOU, whether we sign agreement with governments. Indeed, I think this is in the roadmap. It's acknowledged that it's good to really clarify the role and responsibilities. I know with Caritas Switzerland, we normally always sign an MOU with the district level authorities, the Ministry of Education, before starting to work in schools. So it's something that is indicated and where we have experience in the different countries we worked.
That's great, Lucy. And I know there's a lot of interest to access the materials you've shared, and they're also on the invite. So anyone who's interested to go through the materials, to click on the links in the invite, that'll take you to the resources in the toolkit. There's a question about whether the materials are also available in French. Is there a copyright on the materials? What is the expectation as far as the use of materials go? I know it's all open access, but just to understand how the Swiss Consortium as a group, how do you support the use of or disseminate the use of the materials?
So the material is also available in French. I'm not sure about Spanish. Maybe Daya can confirm or not. We have it in Spanish, Daya, now?
Yeah, I didn't know anything else, yeah. Yeah, it's all available, all on the website. Yeah,
okay.
All 3 messages.
Basically, the idea how we try to manage the dissemination is when you will go on the website to download the material, we ask you to enter your details, so that you are from this organization and this is your name. Then after, you can have free access to the material. Why we do that is because for us it's interesting to keep track on where is it being used. And then afterwards, sorry, there is a microphone again. It's a lot. So afterwards, we will contact you again and know how you've used it and get your feedback and how we can improve the kit. I mean, it's a work. I mean, it's already quite nice material, but we are not saying that's it. We will not improve it anymore. It's a work in process. We will do a round of improvements through this new phase of the consortium. So at one moment, we'll get in touch with anyone who has been using it, and we will ask your feedback. Also, I would encourage you to reach out to us when you want to use the material, because we will be organizing different events as part of the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium in different regions. So you could also take part of in some of the events, or we could also share your experience with you. If you need a training of trainers, maybe now I'm talking too much as an independent consultant, but you can get in touch with us and we can see how we can support. I will be in Stockholm World Water Week, so please don't hesitate to contact me if you have more detailed questions that we will not manage to talk about today. We can talk more then or even by email. We are really there. Please reach out and we are very happy to disseminate it.
Yeah, I would like to emphasize this. It's really, the material is for use. We are happy when it's used. Of course, we are also happy about feedback, if it's positive or negative, but just that we can improve. And yeah, I mean, if you can cite that it comes from us, that would be nice. Exactly. And maybe the session in Stockholm, it's on Thursday. I think it's missing on the slide for those.
What date is it? What date is it, Daya? Next week, Thursday? The 22nd of August?
No, the 29th.
The 29th of August.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it will not be a full session on Blue School. It will just be 5 minutes. So we only have 5 minutes. But so please get in touch with me and we can meet on the side. I can show you even the material. I will bring it with me.
Great. We're almost coming up to the end of the hour. Any final comments or questions? I know there's still a few we didn't get around to. So please feel free to reach out to Daya or Lucy by email to continue the conversation. I'd like to thank both our presenters today for a very interesting conversation. We love hearing about practical experiences from programs from schools and how it's changing the paradigm of learning and improving children's health and well-being. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences today. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more to hear about and learn from your country experiences. Just a reminder to everyone, for those of you who've been following the webinar series, our recordings will be available on the Fresh Partners site, on Save the Children's Resource Center, and on UNESCO's HIV and Health Education Clearinghouse. So that'll be up later this week, early next week. You can look out for it. And the next webinar will be in a month from now on the 16th, or I believe it's the 17th of September. It's a Tuesday, and more details about that to follow. Thank you so much, Daya and Lucy, for the presentations today, and wish you all a good day.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Leave the meeting. We leave
To everyone.
the meeting. Want to leave the meeting? Leave the